Hey y'all, my name is Mac McClenahan. I'm Ms. McClenahan's husband, and I work at a radio station here in town called Spirit 1059. And she's asked me to kind of give you maybe some tips or pointers on how to do video presentation, how to kind of talk during your video presentation. It's what I do for a living every day. I sit in this studio here behind me and I talk. I'll give you a little quick tour of the studio. Move my coffee cup there. There's my desk and speakers and a microphone and everything, and I just kind of do this every day. Not necessarily video stuff, but I do, I speak for a living, so it's, there are things that you can just, that maybe not be apparent to you already, that are really simple to do, so you can just pick them up, and it'll make your presentation and your speaking in front of people much easier. Now, for me, I know that I can go out in front of a crowd of like 16,000 people and say, here's such and such band or something like that, or let's do a contest or whatever. But if I have to get up in a room of 12 people and talk, that's when I really get nervous. So that's kind of a funny thing. That's some people are different. Some people don't want to speak to small groups, and with large groups they're okay, and vice versa. Some people don't want to be in front of large groups, but in small groups they're comfortable. So you'll find your place and kind of get used to it. So and kind of learn how to work each crowd. Now, if you're no matter whether it's video or live, the first thing I would suggest that you do is to really know your material. Pre-read your script or your poem. I think right now you're kind of focusing on poetry and things you've written yourself. So you're going to know the material pretty good already. But I would go over it and over it and over it several times so you can be comfortable with what your script or what your poem says, what your paper says in front of you. I'm looking at some notes down here in front of me. If you're having to read it live, like if you have to get up and go in front of the class, you might want to take a couple of minutes before class or ask permission to go up before you start and just kind of go up there and stand at the podium and look around. Take a breath and get your bearings on exactly what it's going to look like from that point of view. Because sometimes it can be pretty scary if you get up and walk in and all of a sudden you're turning around and looking at a room, whereas you've always looked that way, all of a sudden now you're looking back this way. And so everything's different. It's like being a whole different room. So you can stand up at the podium and look around, get your comfort, put your hands on each side, find out where you want to put your hands, anything like that. Even if there's no podium and you just want to stand in front of the class, get up there and get a perspective of what it's going to look like once you get up there. Look around on the floor to see if there are any wires or anything that you could trip over, things like that. So you want to be sure and not have to, have that happen to you while you're walking up to do your presentation. One thing that is going to be, I think it's instrumental when you're speaking live, no matter what, is to practice your breathing. I do that also with scripts. I read scripts all the time, and I will mark a script up and show myself where I want to breathe in a certain sentence. So keep that in mind too as you're reading your poem. You don't want to start off and get halfway through a sentence and run out of breath. And there's one thing that really, it still puzzles me to this day, and I've been doing this for a long time, is that oftentimes when I get up in front of people and have to present or read or whatever, I find that I get too much air. I take a deep breath, and start to read, and I get halfway through it, and my body feels like it's out of air, but yet my lungs are full, so I have to go and let it all out, and then take a breath that's a little more the right size, and then can continue that way. So keep in mind your breathing. Find out where you're going to take your breaths. Find out how much breath you need to get through a whole sentence. If you want to make a point by getting through a whole sentence and you don't want to pause in the middle of that sentence, make sure you get enough breath to make it through the whole sentence. Find out where you're going to breathe. That's a good thing to keep in mind. Let's see here. For video presentations, you want to be aware of where your microphone is. You've seen lots of presentations where people are like this, where first of all you're way off in the distance and you can't hear, and it's like, and now today I'm going to present this, and it really sounds kind of weird. I know that on this iPad that the microphone is right up here at the top. So I know that the best sound I'm going to get is going to be right there at the top. And you don't want to speak to the bottom. So on your camera or on your iPad or on your phone or whatever, be aware of where the microphone is. I think on phones they're always on the bottom because you're talking, and your voice is closer to the bottom. So, but I had to test it today earlier and find out where the microphone was exactly on this iPad. And sure enough, it's up at the top. I could tell because when I got down here to the bottom, it was kind of echoey and stuff like that. And you heard it much better when I got up near the top. So it's up there somewhere. I don't see it anywhere, but it's there. Let's see. Enunciate your words. You don't want to stand up in front of people and just mumble, unless that's called for in your script or your poetry or your presentation or whatever. You don't want to talk like this all the time because that sounds too stiff. You want to try to be natural, but you want to be able to have your words be understood by your listeners. So you want to learn to talk in a very kind of concise way. However, you want to be natural. It sounds funny, but talking natural in front of people or on recordings or things like that is a very hard thing to do. It's almost like a learned experience that you have to practice. So practice talking natural. I drive down the road and read billboards out loud and things like that, and experiment with different ways that they're going to sound. Get used to the sound of your voice, because your voice actually does sound like that. When you hear it back, that's what your voice sounds like to everybody else. It just sounds different to you. I noticed there's an article out somewhere that addresses why your voice sounds weird to yourself. I didn't read it, but because my voice sounds like my voice. But I hear my voice recorded and played back to myself every day, so I'm very used to it. My mother used to say, "Oh, I don't like the way my voice sounds. I sound like a hick." And I was like, "No, Mom, that's the way you sound." So she would hate to do voicemails and stuff like that just because she thought she talked really with a slow drawl. And she did, but it wasn't, I don't know the word, but it wasn't something that we laughed at every day. That's the way my mom sounded. So we were used to it. She wasn't used to hearing herself back. One thing to do, if you're reading a paper that you have to turn in, make yourself another copy of that paper and mark it up. Mark it to where you want to breathe. Circle words that you want to emphasize. Put slash marks where you want to pause and things like that. And it just gives you kind of a guidepost, a map on how to get through your script and where to stop and pause and things like that. So that's real handy to do too. And then you have that other copy that's clean that you can hand in to your teacher if that's what you need to do. So make an extra copy and mark it up yourself, and that's a good thing to do. I think that's about all I have. One thing I would like to mention: if you're doing a video presentation, doesn't it drive you crazy when somebody goes, "Hey, it's our video presentation, and this is what I'm going to tell you today," and they're not looking at you? Drives you crazy. They're looking at themselves in the monitor. And so you want to be sure and know where the camera is on your iPad or your phone or your, what do they call them? Camera, yeah. So you know exactly what to look at. Feels weird. I'm sitting here looking at the camera, but I know that when it plays back to you, it's going to look like I'm looking at you and not like I'm looking off to the right. It's like seeing those pictures of people, like sitting on people's TVs or something where the people are looking off into the distance off to the side, and you want to find out what's going on over there. So anyway, same kind of deal here. You want to be sure and engage your audience by looking straight at them. So I think that's pretty much some tips that I had for you. I hope this helps. Practice is really valuable. Practice talking out loud. Practice talking in front of people. It's kind of scary at first, but you'll get used to it. And you can end up being one of the people that gets chosen to do stuff all the time because you are so comfortable in front of a crowd. So it's kind of fun. So enjoy yourself, have fun, and do good. Okay, all right, and don't give my wife too much trouble. Okay, I know you won't. Thanks. See ya. Bye.